Now time to add our wheel. So go place, library, motion, wheels. And so I'm using a 4-inch wheel. So there's a lot of options that we can go with. Obviously not compliant wheels because they're squishy and they won't take the robot weight, but we can use Coulson's if you wanted to. Coulson's they're basically all rubber on the outside, and so they tend to last very long, but they don't offer the best grip with the carpet. So usually we'll use like these wheels over here. You know, they have a little bit of a tread on them, so they run out faster, but they also tend to give more grip. Alright, so we'll just use those. If you're doing 6-inch wheels, you can go into this folder, and there's this whole wheel here. Should be here. There we go. There's a wheel, and you can use that. So for now, for the 4-inch wheel, we'll use this one over here. Hit open, and there's our wheel. Now if you look, a hex shaft won't really work with this wheel because there's this big circle here. But if you measure the circle, it's actually the same size as the bearing. So what we want to do here is, should we just place bearings inside it? But remember, bearings allow the outside part to stay stationary and the inside part to rotate. So if we put a bearing here and a bearing on this side, our wheel will rotate freely from that hex shaft, which is not what we want. We want the hex shaft to rotate the wheel. So this is where we use what's called a Versa hub, or just a hub, but Vexpro makes them, they call everything Versa something. So what you want to do is find the Versa hub. Oh, it's not in here actually. It's in hardware. Hardware? Is it not in here? Oops. Oh, there we go. It's in motion hubs. And here it is, Versa hub. So you see 1/2-inch hex. Hit open. And if you look in this, right, so it's got this circular face that's the same size as the bearing. And then it has these 6 screw holes, and this is again the Versa pattern. So if you look, if you measure diameter of this screw pattern circle, it's 1.875. Same thing as our gearbox. But basically what happens is, I'll start constraining as well. So you hit constrain, you place the hub inside the wheel, and I know it's hard to see because they're both black in color, but you see these holes on the Versa hub line up with the holes on this wheel, and so you can add screws. And basically what happens is the hex shaft goes into this hexagon here, rotates the hub, and because the hub is connected to this wheel with a bunch of screws along the edge, it rotates the wheel as well. And this takes care of it, so we don't need a hub on the other side as well. What we do is we have a hub on one side of the wheel, and then we have a bearing on the other side because we don't need a second hub. And so we're gonna do constrain. And by the way, I just copy pasted the bearing, if you're wondering how it got there. And so we're gonna insert the bearing into our hub. There we go. Hit apply. Not our hub, into our wheel. And then we're gonna do an insert constraint from the bearing to our spacer here. There we go. Hit apply. And if you look, we might actually be over our 2 inches. Yes, we are. These wheels are pretty big. Right, so you see this 2-inch gap here isn't enough. But we do actually have some extra room from these screws. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete this 1/2-inch spacer, and then we'll place a, let's see, oh, wrong one. We'll place a 1/4-inch standoff, oh, not standoff, spacer, and an 1/8-inch spacer. Let's see if that combination works. So we'll try the 1/4 first. Oh, wrong one. Let me pick it, please. Try to, oh, this is so bad. Okay, constrain again. We'll try one more time with the bearing. Wrong one. There we go. There's our spacer. Hit apply. Alright, so is this enough? It's close. Nope, it's not enough. Okay, we'll add our 8 spacer. There we go. Hit apply. And then let's do the spacer and the bearing. There we go. So it's, as you can see, I moved the wheel a little bit closer to these screws. And if we look from the side, oh, that still may not be enough. Or wait, there's something wrong. Oh, we didn't constrain this 2x1, which is really bad. So let's make sure we constrain this. Yep, that was the problem. Okay, there we go. 2 inch, oh, not 22 inches. 2 inches. There we go. Hit apply. And if you look from the side now, our wheel is inside the 2 inches. Yay, it's great. Okay, that's what we wanted. No problems at all. Alright, so as you can see, we've got our wheel here, we've got the hub. Now if you see, our hex shaft's far away from the hub itself, so we have to measure. What we're going to do is tools, measure, hex shaft face to the hub. We need 0.641 inches more from our hex shaft, so let's go to our gearbox, let's go to the hex shaft. And this hex shaft here, let's make it another, so we're going to do 5 plus 0.641 inches, hit OK, and that should do it. So we'll go to our drivetrain, hit update, and there we go. You see our hex shaft comes out all the way to the hub. And then what we do here is, now obviously if you see here, if you left it like this, right, the wheel would just pop out of the drivetrain and then things will go wrong. So what we do here is we place a screw and a washer. So hardware, washers. The 0.25 ID means inner diameter, so 1/4 inch inner diameter for a 1/4-20 screw. And then the OD is outer diameter. So we don't really care too much about that. We just want to make sure it holds the hex shaft in place. So open the washer and we'll place a 1/4-20 screw here. So hardware, screws, 1/4-20 1/2 inch, and then because this is on the outside, we generally like using a button screw. You can use a socket screw, but the thing with the button is it has a rounded face to it, and that's just, it makes sure like if the screw ends up hitting the bumper, it doesn't damage it as much. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna constrain, insert the washer and the screw here. Alright, so that's how that goes. Hit apply. If you see, there's our screw, there's our washer, and we're going to select the outer ring of the washer to our hex shaft. So if you see that setup here, you see the washer itself, it's 0.625 OD outer diameter, and that's bigger than our 1/2 inch hex shaft. So what it's doing is it screws into the hex shaft and it keeps this hub and the wheel from popping out, which is what we want, because otherwise we're going to get into big problems. So there's our wheel, and what you can do is create more hex shafts for this side, add bearings here, and then the next thing we need to do is let's add some bearings and sprockets. So we'll go to our bearing, Control C and Control V. Let's get a second one, constrain, insert bearing number 1, and there's the second bearing. Let's place that here. There we go. There's our 2 bearings. And then what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to be lazy here. I'm just going to copy paste all the parts of this wheel. So the 2 spacers, the bearing inside the wheel itself, the hub, the washer, and the screw. I'm going to take all of that. I'm going to right click, component, demote, and we'll create a new assembly. So we'll make this wheel assembly, and yes, and what we get is this whole assembly that we can just do Control C, Control V, and now we have our whole wheel with the spacers and the screws. You don't even have to worry about copy pasting and constraining all of it. So that's what I really like about using sub-assemblies. It's because it makes things a lot easier. So there's our whole wheel and the spacers and everything. The next thing we need here is to match up with these sprockets in our gearbox. So remember, on a drivetrain, we've got these 2 chain runs that connect the gearbox sprockets to the actual outer wheel so that all 3 wheels were spinning. And so we need to add, where did it go? We need to add sprockets on these two wheels over here as well. So first thing, if you notice, right, we've got a 1/4" aluminum plate on this side. What we want to do is basically make a sprocket here and the sprocket here line up. And in order for them to line up, the distance from this 2x1 to the sprocket needs to be the same on both sides. So first we have to account for this 1/4" aluminum plate. And so what we're going to do is we're going to place a spacer that's going to be 1/4 inches. So that we account for the aluminum plate. And we already have a bearing here, so that bearing will be the same as this bearing in terms of distance. So we'll hit constrain, insert, and there is our spacer. Right, the next thing is, oh, we can just place a sprocket now. So go place, let's go library, motion, sprockets, 35 chain, 12 tooth, that one right there. Place that, constrain, insert, let's go to the back, oh, where did it go? The back of the sprocket to the spacer here. Right, so the sprockets have, so one side of the sprocket is this like flat face and the other side has this like rounded part, and so that rounded part basically serves the purpose of this spacer over here. And if you want to check, so we can do a measure, so we'll do tools, measure this face of our sprocket to this face, and these should be basically 0. Yeah, and it's like 0.001, which doesn't really matter because it's basically 0. And what that means is if we have a chain from here to here, it's going to be in a straight line, and you want to make sure it's in a straight line because otherwise your chain's going to come off and it's not going to work. So there's our sprocket, and we don't need anything else here. So what we can do is we can measure how long the distance from here, right from our sprocket to our hub is. That's 3.598, and so we can just make a hex shaft that's 3.598. Now we can do two things here. We could add a shaft collar at the end of the shaft, or we could repeat the screw and washer method. They both work, but you know, it's just with the shaft collar you might be able to access it a little bit easier because the screws are on the top. With the screw and a washer, it's generally a shorter package, so it's better in most cases. So I forgot the number here, 3.598. Let's make a hex shaft. So again, I'm going to use my template here because I don't want to make another hex shaft, but I'll go over in a video how to make these templates. Okay, we want it to be 3.598 thunder hex, and we don't want clusters on it. Thunder hex, okay, hit OK. There's our hex shaft. We'll go constrain, insert, let's go there, and this part of the sprocket, and obviously that's not right, so we'll go opposed, or is that aligned? I think that's aligned, never mind. Hit apply, and there's our hex shaft. And if you're not sure if it like goes to the right place, what you can do is click the, oh, we can't actually, you can go inside the assembly, find the washer, and right click and make it invisible, and then you can see the hex shafts right there. So I just control Z, but you can see the hex shaft goes all the way through, and then we just have to do the same thing here. So we'll place, let's go library, hardware, 1/4 inch, and then generally on the inside we end up using socket screws because we have more socket screws on hand, so it's just easier, and we don't care about it being rounded on this part of the drivetrain because it's facing the inside and we have a lot of space on the inside. Hit open, there's our washer, constrain, insert, so there's the screw, there's the washer, hit apply, and we'll go there, hit apply. So the same thing like the hub, we've got a washer and a screw, and prevents the sprocket from falling out. And what you can do on the other side, obviously if you see on the drivetrain, I have one chain that's close to my 2x1, right, you can see here, and then I've got another sprocket on my gearbox that's further from the 2x1, And so this chain over here is further from the 2x1, and what you end up doing in the hex shaft is there's a 1/4 inch spacer, and then there's this 3D printed spacer here. That's the width of a sprocket. You can also just place another sprocket here to take up the same space, and you put your second sprocket here. Alright, so it's the same thing really. So we have that here. Now I don't want to spend more time on making wheel shafts and sprockets because I think you can see how it's pretty simple to do it. Next thing I'm going to do is we're going to make a belly pan for the bottom here. So what I'll do first is save the assembly, hit OK. Right, so let's create a new part for our belly pan. So we'll make a rectangle, we'll make a, nope, we don't need anything else. Okay, we'll make a rectangle here. So I'm just making the rectangle symmetric to the middle, so vertically symmetric, and then horizontal constraint so that my lines are horizontal and it's in the middle. There it is. Alright, so we need dimensions. So this is 20. So our width is 24, and then we left 2-inch gaps for the wheels. So that's 24 minus 2 on each side. So 24 minus 4, which is 20. I'm very good at math. And then it's 26 inches long. So there we go. And then what we need here. So we have to do like a pattern of holes all around the perimeter. So what I'll do is I'll make one circle first. We'll dimension it 5 seconds, like a rivets, and we'll offset it 1/2 inch from each side. Now I could technically do a rectangular pattern in here and then suppress everything that's on the inside, but that slows down like the whole CAD file. So what I'm going to do instead is I will extrude everything, including our circle that we made, and we'll do symmetric. And so generally with belly pans, you can either go for like a 1/8 inch thick piece of aluminum, but you have to cut parts of it to reduce weight, or you can go something like 3/32, which is very thin, but you can use like the full sheet and you don't have to cut out any parts to make it lightweight. So we'll do that, and then what you can do is you can go on a plus and find your sketch, right click, turn on visibility, and now we can extrude again from the sketch. So I'll extrude the circle this time. I'm gonna make it go through all of it. Oh, never mind. Okay, there we go. Through all of it symmetrically. Hit OK. And so there's our circle, right? I'm gonna turn visibility off for the sketch. And so what I can do now is I can pattern it in 3D mode, which I just find that to be easier than the sketch patterns, and it generally makes the file a little bit smaller. So we'll go 24. Oh, that was a lot. 20? Yep, 20 is fine. That's what we need. Hit OK. And then what I'm going to do is I'll mirror this pattern across this plane. Nope, that plane. Oh, that's wrong. This plane. There we go. There's our other 20 holes we need. Hit OK. And then we need a final rectangular pattern along the long part of the thing. So that's our circle. That's the direction. 24, I think we would need the other way. That's too short. Let's do 25. I'm not doing 26 because we already made those holes there, so we don't need it. 25. There's that. Let's mirror this over right there on this plane. Nope. There we go. There's our second set of holes. Hit OK. As you can see, 3D patterns are much faster and easier to use, so I like using them more. And then finally we'll just do some fillets on these edges here. So 1/8 inch radius. So let's go here, these corners, because they should not be sharp or otherwise they'll cut people. There's that edge. And there's our final edge right there, and we'll hit OK to fillet. Yeah, fillet it. Right, and then let's set our material. So aluminum 6061, does the color automatically, and then let's save it. So we'll do WCD belly pan. Alright, so let's place it over here now. So let's go to our CAD challenges, WCD belly pan, rotate, there it is, there's our belly pan. And now what we want to do is constrain, insert, let's pick this edge hole over here, and it's over there, right there. Okay. Now I know on the 2x1s I have a 1/2 inch hole pattern, and I did a 1 inch hole pattern on the belly pan. Reason for that is because if I did a 1/2 inch pattern, and if we actually put in that many rivets, it would be like 400 or something rivets, which is absurd. And you know, you don't need that many rivets to make a strong joint here. So that's why I just did a 1 inch pattern. You can do a 1/2 inch pattern, there's no problem in doing that, but can't use that many rivets. Right, so there's our belly pan, you can see. And if you look, our gearbox and our gear actually dive into the belly pan, so we will have to do a cutout, just like on this drivetrain. Yep, so we have to do a cutout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure how far this plate is from the 2x1. It's 2.7, so we'll just take 3 inches. And then how wide is this? So I'll just measure the standoffs because that's pretty wide, and that's like the width of the gearbox. So they're like 2.7. Okay, I think we'll just do a 3x3 cutout over here. So let's open up our belly pan and let's create a sketch in the middle. Right, so we want a rectangle here and one here. I just use a shortcut to get the rectangle function, but yeah, it's just a rectangle. Oops, it's a rectangle. We want horizontal. These two things should be the same point. Let's make it symmetric at the middle. We want everything on the rectangle to be equal. And we're doing a 3x3, so we can just make it a square. Okay, dimension 3 inch, and this one should be, oh, we already set that one. Okay, and the final dimension we need is from this edge, it should be 1 inch because that's where our 2x1 is. And we'll do the same thing over here, and I can just select this dimension so I don't have to enter 1 inch. There it is, finish sketch. Let's extrude it. We're cutting. Yep, hit okay. There's our cuts. And you want to fillet this as well. And so because all these fillets are like inside corners, I can just do all fillets and it'll pick them up automatically, so I don't have to do these manually. And let's bump up the radius to be 1/4 so it's nice and rounded. Hit OK. There's the cutouts. They look pretty good. Let's save this and close it. So if you look here now, we've got a nice space for our gear and the gearbox plate to go through. And you can go on the underside and check to make sure it's like not touching anything. And this space is actually super useful if something goes wrong with the gearbox and pits, because that's the only way you can access it if you've got other mechanisms around it. Right, so there's our gearbox, there's our wheel over there. What are the final things we need? Oh yeah, we need a bumper mount. So what we're gonna do is, I'll just do a front and back bumper mount, so similar to this drivetrain over here, where there's a rail on the top, on the front and the back. We'll do that style here. I'm gonna go create. Let's create a 1x1, so bumper rail is what I'll name it. Let's place it here. Again, I'm using my template, but you can watch the video on how to make these. So it's 24 inches wide, our drivetrain, 1/8 inch, 5/32 holes. That looks perfect. Hit OK. There's the 1x1. Turn. Right, so there's our 1x1. Let's constrain it. So we want it to be flush from here to here, right? Look right there, that lines up. And we want this to be flush from here to here. That's good. And then what I'm going to do is, alright, so how far up should it be? Well, I think it's probably a good idea to place our bumpers here so we can get a reference for how far up that should be. So let's create some bumpers. So we want it to be 24 inches wide by 26 inches long. Now remember, we have those 8-inch brackets that hold the bumper together, so we need to account for those. So the width will be fine. We need to make this 26.25 because they're 1/8 inch in thickness and there's 2 of them, one on the front, one on the back. So we add our extra 1/4 inch. And the cutout is basically this inside space here. You can use a cutout some years if you want like a intake, like a ball or something through this gap. It also makes it easier to put the bumpers on and off because they can expand a little bit. Last year we didn't do a cutout because we wanted the balls to be able to go over the bumper. So that's why we didn't do a cutout last year, but we'll just go with a cutout for now. Return, and there's our bumper. So now this is where using planes becomes really handy because all I have to do is go on the bumpers, just select the middle plane, go to my assembly, select the middle plane. That's all I have to do. I don't have to figure out the distances or do any math, so it's always a plus. And that's the wrong plane. There's the one. Alright, apply, and then so it's in the middle of our drivetrain, but it's not at the correct height yet. So generally we try to do something like an 1/8 inch of a gap from the bottom of the 2x1. This may come from your layout sketch if you're planning this out. So right now I'm just adding an 1/8 inch, but this may come from your layout sketch and things. And let's measure. So the top of this to the top of this is 2.875. Let's see, we're gonna have our 1/8 inch bracket, remember? So 2.875. I cannot type minus 0.125. It's 2.75. That's how far up this 1x1 needs to be. So constrain flush 2.75 inches, and that went underneath, so negative. There we go. So that's the right place. Now in terms of attaching it, I'll do something different this time where I'll actually make a 1x1 that goes here. So let's make another 1x1. Before I do that, I'm going to save this just to make sure all the files get saved. So let's create another 1x1. Now this create function here in an assembly, it basically does the same thing as if you do a new part or a new assembly going there, but you can do it inside the assembly, so it's a little bit faster and you don't have to, go back and forth. So yeah, bumper rail support. Hit OK, place it there, and we said we want it to be 1.75 inches long to cover that gap. So, and we could actually do a 2x1 if we wanted to, but let's stick to a 1x1 for now, and hit OK. There it is. So let's constrain it. We want it to be on top of this 2x1. Let's make it flush with this 2x1. Right, now this distance here, that's going to depend upon where my gussets go. So I can make a gusset on this corner here, for example, that will cover all these holes, and it will attach my 1x1 here. So actually I think I'm just going to put it there because that looks like a nice place for it. So constrain, how should I constrain this? Alright, let's do this. So constrain from this 2x1, let's make it 2 inches. Oh, that was too much. 1 inch. Yep, there we go. So now if you remember, like in this drivetrain we had these gussets here, like these plates. If I drag it out, oh, I can't drag that one out. Can I drag this one out? Yep. So if you look at this gusset, right, it's got all the hole patterns so that you can just attach it simply in there with rivets. And so we can make a gusset here. So let us do that. Again, I'll save this just to make sure. I like saving it frequently because Inventor does crash sometimes, and when it does, it's bad because you lose all your progress. But anyway, back to the gusset. Let's make our gusset here. So you could make this using a bunch of rectangles, but I just like using lines because it's a little bit easier to look at for me. Right, and you want it to be vertical. You want all these lines to be vertical. Here, 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 and there. And then let's make all these horizontal. And let's arbitrarily make that the center. Because, you know, in this view, the gusset isn't really symmetric, so can't really pick a symmetric center. So I want it to be collinear here. And so this was 2 inches wide, 2 inches. And our 1x1 in the middle was 1.75. This is a 2x1, so it's 2 inches tall. And that's a 1x1, so it's 1 inch tall. And this part would be 1 inch wide. So there's our basic shape. And then what we need are the holes. So circle. Let's make this 5/32. Dimension it from here to here. 1/2 inch. Same thing on this side. There we go. Let's pattern it across. So there it is. 2. Oh, we can do 3 because we have a 1/2 inch pattern on a 2x1. So 0.5. Let's go up. That's the wrong way. There we go. Now I can't do these holes here because it's not one continuous pattern. If you look, right, if I measure from here to here, oh wait, actually it is a pattern. I forgot. Oh, it doesn't work on this side. Yeah, so it doesn't work on this side, but it works on over here. So we can actually just edit this pattern and make this 4. There we go. So we can actually use these 2 holes here. For these ones, I'll just select them, make them construction. You could also suppress them, same thing. And then we can make a second pattern here. Or actually, we need to make a pattern. We'll just make 2 circles, equal those ones. It's on the same vertical line here. And it's, because this is 1 inch, it's 1/2 inch there. So we'll just do horizontal constraints. And that first one didn't work, so there they are. Right, that looks good. Oh, we have a third hole here as well, so we need to make 3 circles. Hit equal, horizontal, and vertical. There we go. Finish sketch, extrude this middle part. Let's make it 1/8 inch. In the season, actually, one time we machined these bumper gussets to be made out of 16th aluminum instead of 1/8, and they bent very badly. So yeah, you need to use an 1/8 here. Let's make these 1/4 inch radius, and then let's pick other corners. So that's a sharp corner, that's sharp, and that one, this one, and our last one over here. There we go. Hit OK. There's our gusset, and we just need to set our material. So let's go up here, aluminum 6061. Let's save the file. Bumper rail gusset, and let's place it here. So bumper rail gusset, there it is. Hit open. Alright, so let's constrain it. I want to do insert that hole over here to this one over there. As you can see, it lines up perfectly. If I can select the holes, there we go, hit apply. And so that gusset will keep our 1x1 in place, and you can see everything now would be attached in real life. And then you can, CAD the gussets on the bumper, these 1/8 inch ones, and you can add them here all along. Do the same thing on the other side, and that would be your drivetrain. Now I will not finish this drivetrain because I want you guys to do the finishing part yourself. It should be pretty simple from here on out. And so there's the second cat challenge. Enjoy.